Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Wherever you are in the world, welcome to another edition of Jerry's Take on China. And of course, I'm Jerry. I'm in a hotel room traveling, and there's a lot of criticism about China's restrictions. So I'm going to tell you what it's like to travel around China right now. First of all, there are some places you simply can't travel to or from if they're in lockdown or are known as high-risk areas. But let's be a little more specific and give you a better understanding of these lockdowns. Currently in Zhongshan, the city where I live, there's one small part of a very small township called Sanjiao that is closed. You can't go in or out at the moment, but if you live there, you can move around inside the lockdown areas. In other words, people are allowed in and out of their homes, but they aren't allowed out of the locality. In a neighboring city, Zhuhai, there are some places locked down, but I want to give you an example of what this means. Here's a screenshot of the local information from a Guangdong English language news outlet called GD Today. In it, they describe the extent of these high-risk areas. These are the areas where people are required to remain in their homes. It consists of a few streets, a few shops, and an apartment complex. In a city of 2 million people, including thousands of foreigners, this affects maybe 50 to 100,000 people. I'm currently traveling in China, and I wanted to talk to you about how difficult it is to get around if you don't know the system. If you know the system, it's not so bad. But there are problems and there will be hurdles, no matter how well you or your family, your staff or your guides speak the language and understand this system. The main point is that if you have a Chinese speaking ability or a Chinese traveling companion, in my case my wife, you can get through almost every hurdle. Last month I was in Hunan. When I returned to Zhongshan, I needed to take a test at the railway station on arrival. No problems with that. Inside of Guangdong, my phone system works well. All I needed to do was scan 3 times, and I've shown you that in a previous video, so you know how easy that is. A few days later, because I'd been to a different province, I went for another test and everything's okay. My QR code remains green, my itinerary has a nice green arrow, I can go anywhere I please. This week, I'm in a province called Jiangsu, in a city called Zhenjiang. It's not so easy, but it's still quite manageable to get around. Before going to the airport, we needed to take a test. For me, this was my 3rd test in just over a week, but that's okay. The test center is a 10-minute walk from home. The test takes 2 minutes, and the result is on the phone a few hours, maybe 6 or 8 hours later, and it's free. On arrival at the airport, I showed my green QR code. After that, I showed my green arrow, and we're in the entire process taking maybe 20 to 30 seconds. And as long as I have that test result that shows we had a test 24 hours ago, we can enter the airport and fly. Before we got on the plane, the staff tried to help us to get the new app for the destination airport because they want to avoid delays on arrival. My wife downloaded Jiangsu's app and she's fine. On arrival, she was able to enter without any hassle, just by scanning Jiangsu's QR code. My app won't download because it needs a Chinese ID rather than a passport number. If I live in Jiangsu, I'd have exactly the same problem getting into Guangdong. They aren't interchangeable. And this is where it's helpful to either speak or understand enough Chinese to navigate these instructions, or if you have someone with you who does, then there's no problem. If you don't, then this is where things go wrong. As it was explained to me that I needed to talk to the health authorities at the airport and they would help me when I arrived in Jiangsu. Don't try to leave the airport, as that won't work. And that's when people get excited. So on arrival in Jiangsu, we went straight to the desk, told them that my app didn't work. They recorded my information manually, checked my Guangdong code and my recent test results, thanked us and let us through manually. It's as easy as that. Maybe less than a 5-minute delay. On day 1 in Jiangsu, we needed to go to the local test center to have a check. For my wife, her results are sent to her phone. For me, I needed to go back the following day to pick up a manual result. But that was easy because we've been asked to take 2 tests in 3 days. So at the same time as I was picking up the result of test test 1, I was getting tested for test 2. The testing station is 5 minutes walk from the hotel. The cost is 4 RMB. That's $1 or less than $1, 50p in the UK. Before we leave Jiangsu, we're going to need another test. When we get to our destination, which might be Chongqing or it might be home, depending on different circumstances, we'll need 2 more tests. Now, all this may seem like a pain in the neck, but I'm traveling on Chinese airlines through different parts of China, and I know that neither I nor my fellow travelers have COVID. Isn't that a small price to pay? Now, as always, if you have any questions or you want to add to the discussion, please leave me a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks once again for watching Jerry's Take on China, and I'll see you next time.